Minister Patrice Gumbs ready to take the floor on the proposed motions by members of Parliament. Minister Gumbs.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be reflecting on the motion proposed by MP York regarding the protection of, let me get the correct name, draft motion Mullet Bay and coastal protection. Let me just start by saying I think all the PFP talk today even drew the minister so far as to read the manifesto, because it actually is very much in line with what PFP is speaking about. And you know, in all seriousness, I will say we can, as government, definitely support this as a good motion, very much in line with what we're currently doing with E7 in the country packages, which speaks about how we actually make use of our land. I think one thing I also want to be very open about is be aware that there are existing permits for a lot of these areas that were approved quite a number of years ago. Also be aware that this also includes a lot of requests that regard private land. And I think as Minister, you know, there's this misconception. I think MP La Cruz asking his question during Central Committee as well regarding if you have a permit, you can just build and get revoked. The reality is there's a misconception that just because you own land, you can do whatever you want with land. That's not the case at all. I think it's something that we've been striving for as a COM, and particularly myself as the Minister of Romy, to find that balance between development and environment, and this very much falls in line with that. We are very busy with the zoning, and I think what I want to also preface is that with such a motion, a lot of unpopular decisions have to be made. So it's very comforting, actually, to say that I'm happy to know that when I come with my proposals to Parliament, the vast majority of Parliament, based on this motion, I will have your support for them as well. Regarding the protection of, in particular, Mullet Pond, I think it's a discussion that we've been having within VROMI as well as within the Council of Ministers regarding even the idea of looking at the question of purchasing Mullet Bay. What would that zoning look like? I think also, as started by my predecessor, the zoning of Little Key by the now MP Duran started under his mandate, and we are actually continuing that. And furthermore, we're actually looking at how do we even protect inland areas, and that's something that will be announced very shortly by mid-month as to our ideas for this. So very much the motion falls in line with what the ministry's vision is, the council's personal vision as well, and I think it's something that we can welcome as being very much feasible for us to undertake. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister Patrice Gumbs. Any other minister on the motions? Minister MP Grisha Heiliger-Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good evening once again. I will be speaking on motion 4 that was presented by MP Roseberg. The crime fund is one of a big topic, a hot topic. I think we spoke about it many times in the past, asked about it in many different ways. And this motion is proposing that at least that a policy is created to itemize what the funds will be allocated to. And some of the items were about evidence-based prevention programs, law enforcement and crime solving, community-based violence intervention, victim support and trauma services, reintegration and rehabilitation programs, data collection analysis, and innovation and pilot programs. This can help alleviate the overall government coffer as well. So maybe tapping into that and allocating these funds to these initiatives is a great proposal indeed, and we can see ourselves, the government will be able to maybe see ourselves executing this motion. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, Minister Grisha Heiliger-Martin. Any other minister to speak to the motions? That not being the case, then members of Parliament, we have actually come to the end of the deliberations on this agenda point. Several motions were submitted, and I give briefly the floor to MP York at this time, because actually in our possession, we have 2 motions by MP York, and I know one is to replace, the second one is to replace the first one, but I just would like to hear that from MP York.
Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair. Yes, indeed, after caucusing with my colleagues this afternoon, the decision was made to retract the initial motion and replace it with the one that was published online this afternoon. So by virtue of that, the one that the Minister was speaking about, I would like to officially submit that. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. And we now firstly go over to voting on these motions, but not before I commend the initiators of the meeting for taking the opportunity to caucus with the colleague members of Parliament on the motions, and it is because of that that I believe most of the motions will get definitely a majority of support in the meeting. It's because of that caucusing and tweaking where it was requested, tweaking their own motions to make it acceptable to their colleagues as well, including myself. So I want to thank the members of Parliament who made use of that opportunity to do so. We also have recorded that there have been some commitments made by government and invitations based on proposals by members of Parliament, invitations to meet and the like. We have, for example, a commitment by the Minister of Finance in fact, this is the Minister of TIAT, for a brainstorm session on revenue generating measures. One, the Minister of Finance actually thanked MP La Cruz for some of his comments and made offer to have further deliberations with members of Parliament on that. And we have the commitment that the letter from the World Bank that was received recently, that it would have been sent to Parliament regarding the cancellation of the Trust Fund housing project, which was also an item throughout the meeting. The meeting that I think is concern for members of Parliament across the board, because we have heard it addressed in different manners and fashions, and that is the issue of, I want to put it under the classification of gambling in this country. And we heard a lot about lottery booths and the frequency, et cetera, payment by these institutions. But I do think that it is a matter that I heard from government side and Parliament side that needs to be addressed with urgency. And I believe that these commitments made by the government will be followed through. I look forward to seeing some of these reflections in the proposed budget 2025, where the government has a little more time to dialogue with Parliament on some of the urgent matters regarding this country. So I say that as we actually prepared to vote on the motions. And we have the first motion, and that is the motion of MP York. And the one we have now from MP York, the one replacing the first one, so this has been resubmitted officially to Parliament. And I will read the motion. And it is the Parliament in its meeting of today, October the 29th, considering that the preamble of the Constitution of St. Martin states, "We, the people of St. Martin, are determined to care for the perpetual maintenance of nature and the environment." That Article 22 of the Constitution of St. Martin mandates the government to maintain the country in a habitable state, to improve the natural environment and to ensure the welfare of animals. That in 2013, the Parliament of St. Martin passed a motion to protect Mullet Pond and its mangroves as a nature park, highlighting its ecological importance and economic value to the island's environment and tourism. Studies like the ponds of St. Martin by Ecovision in 1996, the carrying capacity study and the tourism master plan, along with other reports, having consistently highlighted the significance of preserving St. Martin's ponds due to their ecological and environmental value. Historically, that St. Martin had at least 19 ponds as recorded on maps stored at the cadaster's office, and by 1995, the number had decreased to 10, and today, fewer than 5 remain undisturbed. That the current beach policies under the Ministry of VROMI, Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, and TIAT, Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, lack a cohesive, enforceable ordinance that can effectively regulate construction near beach zones, that zoning areas of ecological importance as national parks or protected areas can aid in maintaining the island's environmental integrity, safeguard public spaces, and support sustainable tourism. Therefore resolves to urge the Council of Ministers to demonstrate a proactive stance on environmental protection and management, particularly with regard to coastal and ecologically sensitive areas, by taking visible and enforceable actions. 2, to urge the government of St. Martin through the Ministry of VROMI to initiate and implement zoning plans that designate Mullet Bay areas, its coastal lands, as protected zones with clear restrictions to prevent destructive development in accordance with Ramsar listing, site number 2270.